For more on this, we're now joined by energy analyst Professor Hartmut Winkler, and he joins us now via our video link. Professor, thank you so much for your time this evening. I mean, 600 billion rand needed by 2030 for energy transition in this country. What does that actually entail?
Yeah, well, I'm not quite sure. I've got to say, I'm not an economist, so I don't know exactly what is going to be used, this money is going to be used for. But essentially, the plan is that over the next span of something like 20, 30 years, the coal power stations, which at the moment are producing roughly 80% of South Africa's electricity, are slowly going to be wound down. That doesn't mean it's all going to go quickly. It doesn't mean all of them are going to go. For example, Medupi and Kusile, which has only just been finished, those are set to continue for another 30 or even 40 years at least. So it's not that there's going to be some overnight change of coal to renewable energy. But gradually, as old plants are no longer viable, you're going to find that they're going to be closed down. And instead, there's going to be this construction of renewable plants, wind and solar plants. Now, that's at the moment, the coal sector is largely localized in Mpumalanga, also a little bit in Limpopo and so on. But whereas the renewables at the moment are more in the western half of the country. Solar is in the Northern Cape largely, and wind in the Eastern Cape. That doesn't have to be that way. That just happens to be where the best weather conditions are for these kind of technologies. But there's absolutely nothing stopping one from building solar and wind plants in Mpumalanga. That also has the advantages that you don't need to. One of the problems that we've had recently is that the electricity grid is set up in such a way that it's the strongest in the eastern parts of the country, because that's where the coal plants are, and it's not so strong in areas like the Northern Cape. It also has the advantage of mitigating against possible, given that renewables are dependent on the weather, it's a good idea to spread these plants out throughout the country. Otherwise, you might end up, it's not often that you get a cloudy day in the Northern Cape, but when you do, you don't want your entire country's solar power generation to be ineffective.
And I'm sure a number of people living in the likes of Mpumalanga and Limpopo, as you mentioned, when we talk about energy transition, coal is something that always comes to the fore, and that's something that you are touching on. What does it mean overall for the coal industry, especially if we are moving towards, green energy?
Yes, it's not good news at all, given that the reason coal is largely mined is because of precisely to run coal power stations. And it's not only domestically; it's also we have quite a big coal export sector. So it's not only what happens in this country in terms of electricity generation, but also worldwide. And I think we are looking at a situation where around the world, less and less electricity is going to be generated from coal. That's going to mean that places where there are coal mines now are not going to be able to export as much as they would in the past. So unfortunately, the long-term projection for the coal sector is not good at all. But it's still going to take quite a while. So people that are in the sector now are not going to be, losing their jobs overnight. There is still time to retrain people. There's still time to reset the economic landscape in some of those areas. And that's also why this Just Transition Plan has got this component of retraining people currently employed in the coal sector so that they can become functional in the use of some of these other technologies. So that's largely, I think, what the debate is all about. How do you do that? Is it effective? How do you incentivize various investors and so on to put some funds there and to actually invest money in those areas rather than doing what would be normally the economically most sensible thing, is just to build it at the new plants where the sun shines most and where the wind blows strongest.
And I'm sure South Africans are asking themselves at the moment, we've been with electricity for quite some time, and one would say that it's actually quite concerning because we do know that we really suffer a lot when, it becomes much colder. And it seems as if, things are seeming as if South Africans have some sort of reprieve from load shedding. What is your take on, what we are experiencing right now, that we're not seeing as many power cuts as we should?
Yes, I think most people have been surprised by how quickly Eskom has been able to recover. They are certainly not out of the woods yet, and none of us should be surprised if even tomorrow or in the course of the next months, a new round of load shedding is announced. We are at the moment still in a situation where too many coal plants are under repair. And I think what's largely helped us, there's been a couple of factors. One of them has been that solar rooftops is starting to make an impact. So I think that accounts for roughly one stage of load shedding better than we were last year. The big change, I think, is that we've had 3 of the units at Kusile being repaired towards the end of last year. That accounts for over 2 stages of load shedding. But this can't continue indefinitely. We do need new power. These coal plants, they are being kept going quite well by Eskom right now, but as any old infrastructure, any old machinery, eventually it's just going to break down, and fixing it at some point is going to become too expensive.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. That's Professor Hartmut Winkler, energy analyst there, giving us his insight in terms of course, moving towards the energy transition in South Africa by 2030, 600 billion rand needed there by the country. At the same time, giving us some insight when it comes to the reprieve many South Africans have been experiencing when it comes to load shedding. But we do know that some municipalities have also announced that there would be some sort of load reduction being experienced. And that's how we wrap up this segment.